All right, we're back with Mark. Mark is amazing, absolutely amazing, and has so much information to share. And he also confirmed the secret that he is actually an honest to goodness merman and knows honest to goodness mermaids. So thank you, Mark, for coming back to part two with this and being a part of our Teach Me to Dive community. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's always humbling to come back and be able to share a little bit of what I've learned over these years of doing this. So thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Mark, let's jump into the meat of this. What is the most rewarding experience you've had as a mentor to young divers?
Oh, my goodness. There's been so many. I think when I make that connection with an instructor candidate at an evaluation, and then later on they call me and ask, hey, do you know of anybody that's hiring? Or recently, just a couple weeks ago, I had one of my instructor candidates call me up, and she said, I really want to come to the Grand Cayman Islands somewhere, or the Cayman Islands somewhere, and I would like to teach out of one of the shops there for the summer. Is there anybody that you know that's looking for an instructor to come? And so this has happened a few times in my career. I say, well, I know this shop owner. Here's their contact information. I can send them a little introduction email and let them know that you'll be calling. And sure enough, they call, and through their own merit, through their own qualifications, they get offered a job. I just connected them, but I love it when they get connected to something that they really, truly wanted to do, and they get the opportunity to go do it. And that's one of the things that just is so rewarding for me. Yeah.
That's amazing. And I can definitely see that. And I see it. And we've had several conversations over the last year or so. And I've enjoyed every conversation. And you've been fantastic like that. And it's one of the things I appreciate about the higher you get into this agency and any agency, the more willing that people are to reach out and say, how can I help you? What can I do to make your transition better and better than what it was for me when I was coming up through the ranks? So I appreciate that a lot.
Absolutely.
Now let's jump into kind of the meat of it, though. So can you explain the instructor evaluation process for SSI?
Certainly. So the instructor evaluation process is really just a confirmation of the training that you received as an assistant instructor and an instructor candidate, right? So we're going to go through and do an academic presentation. We're going to do a final written exam, right, to make sure that you know how to look stuff up and find the answers to questions that you might have. We're going to take you over to the pool and make sure you can demonstrate skills. We're going to have you do a pool presentation, a rescue presentation, a rescue stress and rescue demo, I should say, demonstrate the toes. And what you're doing is basically showing us that you can teach students through presentations, through demonstrations, that you have the knowledge, that you've gained the ability to understand the SSI system well enough that we can confidently certify you as an instructor and trust that you're going to be able to create confident, capable students who are going to be comfortable in the water and enjoy this for a lifetime. The instructor evaluation should not be something that you're scared to do. It's not something that you should be nervous about attending. At the end of the day, I always try to tell the candidates coming to my instructor evaluation, you've sacrificed a lot of time, a lot of money. You could have been spending that time with family, but you were training, you were practicing your presentations, you were in the pool working on your demos. At the end of the day, you've spent all that time investing in this moment. Don't let your nerves or your own stress or your own poor thinking cause you to fail. And what I mean by that is just don't stress yourself out. Everything that you're going to do, you've already done, and you've already done it well enough to pass the instructor trainer course. So keep utilizing that confidence, right? Keep your notes from all your presentations. You may be assigned the same topic in the instructor evaluation. Keep all your notes and your feedback on your demos. If your instructor said, slow down, take this hand signal out, don't show people what not to do. Correct? All of that feedback is going to help you remember what you're supposed to do when you get to that instructor evaluation so that you can show them, whoever the evaluator is, that you're going to be the best instructor that there has ever been, and you're going to continue to learn, because that instills confidence, and that helps us, especially when we're in that trying to decide, did you earn a 2 or a 3, right?
Mhm.
Did you actually pass, or is this something where I can counsel you on what you've done and still feel comfortable passing you? I think ultimately what everyone needs to realize is that the training agency has their standards for what passes, um, or what makes a candidate pass an instructor evaluation. But my own personal standard has been, and I think of my nieces and nephews, right? Is this someone that I could give my niece or my nephew to and feel comfortable that they would teach them how to scuba dive correctly? And if that answer is yes, you get certified, right? I can help you learn how to look things up. I can help you with an academic presentation. Those will get better over time. The more experience you have, the better you're going to get. But if you can maintain safety and group control and teach people how to dive safely and confidently, you'll get my vote every time.
That's awesome. So, what are some common mistakes you see people make during the instructor evaluation process?
So the common mistakes are not sticking to the evaluation form criteria. For instance, let's look at the academic presentation. Um, the evaluation system says that there has to be an introduction. It should be the objective, the value, and the key points that you're going to cover in that presentation. And a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that's not how they're going to be evaluated, that they can just come up and say, "Hi, I'm Mark," and go right into their topic. But you actually have to say what the objective is. You have to give the student a reason why they need to learn this information. What's the value of what I'm about to teach you? And then you have to always give your students a roadmap, right? This is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to talk about. And this is why you need to know it. Um, that system, that presentation structure has to be met in order for you to earn the points to pass the academic presentation. And then we don't want you making up a bunch of stuff on your own. Use what's there. A lot of college students um, think, well, I've got to rewrite it, I've got to reword it. And then they miss something in the rewording. So they end up not getting the full points that they need. And sometimes that can mean they don't pass their presentation. But I try to go back and tell them there's no such thing as plagiarizing in scuba diving, right? We're literally going through a book, we're reading that information, we're watching videos. You're going to go over to the pool. You're going to do the same skills that you just read about in the book. It's not like we're going to change anything from the book to the pool. And we definitely don't change anything from the pool to the open water. So don't make changes. It really is that simple. It's a system, because that's what you can count on to teach safe, reliable scuba. That's the whole training agency's job, is to give you the toolbox to have the right tools to teach. And when you're teaching, you gain all that confidence from knowing that I have a system, that I have stories that I can tell and share, that I have different ways of teaching skills that I've learned from other instructors and other dive masters and other students. So just trust in the system. Don't try to be too creative, and just be yourself, right? Some of the most boring presentations have gotten perfect scores, and some of the most energetic, passionate, and fun presentations have failed. So just stick to the system. That's why it's the system.
Absolutely. Simple. Keep it simple, stupid has never been a bad rule of thumb.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So, what advice would you give somebody preparing for their instructor evaluation?
I would say, if you do this, this is the same advice I give everybody. If you'll do this, I promise you'll pass your evaluation. Let's just take the academic presentation.
Okay.
Okay. Take the evaluation form, and after you write out your presentation, go back through and rehearse it a couple of times, and then take the evaluation form and score yourself with that evaluation form. Find in your notes, find in your presentation, where did I say the objective? Where did I say what the value is of learning this information? Where's my key points, right? And then you're going to go down through the rest of the requirements. Where's my knowledge? what's the knowledge that I'm giving them, right? Where are my examples of being an environmentally safe diver, or a local dive trip, right? Where's my equipment or continuing education sale that I've made? Where are my questions, right? And if you go down through those list of requirements for the evaluation form and fill that in, then you're going to know I've got everything that I need in there to pass my academic presentation. And then go through it once or twice with a friend, hopefully another instructor candidate who knows what you're going through and is happy to not only listen to you, but you're going to then turn around and listen to their presentation. Because anytime we can get feedback from somebody else that knows the system before we give that evaluation, you're going to be in a better chance to have success and pass it with flying colors. So if you'll do those little things, does it take a little bit more effort? Yes. Does it take trusting somebody else to listen to you? Yes. But if you're both trying to accomplish the same goal, and if you pass, it doesn't make them less likely to pass. Everybody passes on their own merit. So
Absolutely.
work together, work with your other candidates, and practice each thing that you're going to go through. Talk about your strategy. If you're going to go to the pool later, talk with the other instructors, candidates, about how they're going to manage their students. Where are you going to put your certified assistant if you have one to work with, right? All of those things are going to help you think through your skill that you're going to demo or present in the pool. So make it a team effort, right? The only person you can't talk to during the evaluation is your instructor trainer that took you through your instructor trainer course. And then the last piece of advice I would give you is ask your evaluator questions. Your instructor certifier knows exactly how they're going to grade you on the evaluation form, right? They know exactly what you need to do to earn those scores. So ask them questions, right? If I wanted to do this, can you give me some advice on that? Now, as a certifier, during the instructor evaluation, I'm not supposed to be teaching, and I'm not supposed to be giving you feedback, right? Not like they do in the instructor trainer course.
Of course.
I'm literally supposed to sit there and say pass or fail. But it doesn't mean I can't tell you or give you some answers to your questions in a reasonable fashion to help maybe knock out a couple of the butterflies in your stomach, or to calm your nerves a little bit, or just to give you the reassurance that you're on the right track. If I've had somebody that was planning on doing something that would cause them to fail, usually what I would say is something along these lines. I would ask a couple other candidates what they think of this situation. The second thing I would do is I would go review in the instructor manual and in standards where it talks about direct contact during the ascent, or where it talks about supervising your students, right? And just go have another think about that. Those type of answers aren't directly saying, no, you absolutely have to maintain physical contact with the student during the ascent of an emergency air ascent, right? But at the end of the day, I can't tell them that, but I can give them all the hints and all the reassurance so that maybe what's not clicking will actually click when they go back to think about what I've said.
No, that's fantastic. And I can confirm that when I went through my evaluation, I did exactly that advice. And it was fantastic to make sure that I was on the right track, to make sure that I did well with what I was doing as well. And having a great instructor evaluator definitely helps as well. Somebody that wants to work with you, wants to partner with you,
Right.
not just check a box that I've done this. And it makes all the difference in the world, in my opinion. So I appreciated that advice when I was ready for mine. And I absolutely took advantage of it. Nobody says you can't ask questions. You just can't talk to your ITC.
Right. There's only one person you can't talk to, and that's the person that took you through your instructor training. So,
and unfortunately, they're usually in the room. I can see you, but I can't talk to you. Dang it! I need your help.
Right. Well, it's important for the instructor trainers to be there from this standpoint. They're the ones that are preparing people to be evaluated. So if they can't witness the evaluation process and see what's going to happen when their candidates get there, how can they properly train you for what's about to happen in your instructor evaluation? I get lots of calls like this for advice on How can I do this, or what can we tell our candidates, things like that. And I always tell people, come. If I'm doing an instructor evaluation, come see me. Come watch the way I do it. If you're a certifier and you want to know how to do it, come watch me. I go watch other certifiers all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, there's ways you can learn and adapt what you're doing to make the candidates more comfortable and to ensure that they're successful. Now, obviously, there are going to be people that fail, people that may not just be ready at that moment to pass. And there's going to be some people that probably never should pass for a variety of reasons. And most of those are people that are just too confident. They're too cocky. They won't receive feedback. They won't receive constructive criticism, and they refuse to do it the way the system was laid out. So I feel like, there's nobody out there that's going to fail somebody and then not give them all the feedback and all the information on what they have to work on to know that the next time you come back, you're going to pass this with flying colors. And I will tell you this much. If you ever find yourself as a candidate in an instructor evaluation and you fail, please finish the weekend, finish the evaluation. Even though you know you're going to fail, continue to be a positive support for the other candidates. Because one, if you finish the weekend, you're going to know what to expect when you go back, and you're going to know how to get through the entire weekend. You'll also get feedback on the other areas of the evaluation that you didn't fail. So you can strengthen that scoring that you've earned in those areas as well. And you can get confidence that, hey, this truly was the only one area where I had a mistake. And it also says something professionally. If you can fall flat on your face, stand back up and keep going, knowing that you're not going to pass, but you're still willing to be there for everybody else, I promise you your instructor certifier is going to be impressed with that. And it's going to pay you off huge dividends, especially when they go to give you your feedback at the end of the evaluation and how they're going to structure how they talk to your instructor trainer on giving you tips and advice for passing the next time you come to an evaluation. Never be afraid to fail. Be afraid to not get back up and change to succeed the next time you have that opportunity, is my advice to everybody when it comes to instructor evaluations, especially when they go the way you didn't plan on them.
Absolutely. That's just good life advice in general as well. Is
Yeah,
just because you failed you always fail forward. Don't fall on your sword, fail forward.
that's right.
Yep. If you're going to fall up the hill, not down the hill.
Exactly. I definitely don't want to do this twice.
Yep. We have both spent time on those mountains in
Yes, we have.
bleeding and sweating in the same places. And it's a lot easier to fall up the hill than it is down.
Absolutely.
So there's always a hack or two out there. That's kind of the buzzword we all look for at this point. What are 2 hacks that you learned that increase success in an ITC or an evaluation?
I think the first one is copy and paste. Right? We've all seen death by PowerPoint. And I know that there are some people out there that just don't have the technological skills to create a PowerPoint. And that's fine. Okay, that's absolutely fine. But let me just say this about PowerPoint in its defense. Even if you don't have pretty slides, that's not what's going to make you pass or fail. It's the information on the slide.
Mm-hmm.
So put your objective, put your objective, put your value, put your key points on a slide, right? And if you go through the evaluation form for SSI, and it's like this for a lot of agencies, you have to have an introduction. You have to have the body of your presentation, then you have to have a summary. The summary, almost 99%, is the introduction, just in past tense. So copy your intro slide or slides, paste them at the back. You've already got your summary done. In the SSI system, that's 9 points for the introduction. That's 9 points for the summary. That's 18 points. You're halfway to passing your presentation because you need 36 points to pass. I've just given you 18. Right? As long as you don't say anything unsafe, that's 3 points. If you ask people to use the app to follow along in your presentation, that's Well, use the app and write your name on the whiteboard. That's the 3 points that you need, because those are 2 training aids. If you're talking about something that you can pass around a piece of equipment, get an appropriate piece of equipment and pass it around. Let the students touch it. Let them feel it. And when I say copy and paste, that's kind of what I'm talking about, is just take the information right out of the textbook, copy, paste it into the presentation, and put it there in a way that's legible. Use the PowerPoint pegs that SSI has given you. Copy and paste those pictures into that PowerPoint, right? And for those of you that say, now, Mark, for a guy that said you don't have to use PowerPoint, you just gave us all tips that relate to PowerPoint. Well, let's put this into a whiteboard situation. On the whiteboard, I want you to write your name. I want you to write the objective and the value and your key points on the whiteboard. And then remember to reference it at the introduction, and remember to reference it in your summary, right? Use the SSI app. I have taught more courses with just my phone and a little plug-in that allows me to present it to the TV. For larger classes, when it's just 1 or 2 people, I've just used their phone and my phone. They're looking at the student version and I'm looking at the instructor version, and I'm just running down asking them check-in questions. Both of those things are going to work wonderfully for you. And the second thing is this, and it kind of falls into the same line as copy and paste. Don't be afraid to say it exactly the way you found it in the book. If it's in the book, you know it's the right way to say it. So just say that. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Don't try to be Jacques-Yves Cousteau, making a new scuba cylinder out of something that never existed before, right? This has been a tried and true method of teaching people scuba. Use it. Say it. It's not plagiarism. It's a great way of instilling confidence and comfort until you can figure out other ways of doing it safely and confidently and correctly. Okay, so those would be my 2 hacks. Copy and paste and just say it the way it's written.
I think that's great advice. Don't reinvent the wheel. I think there's a lot of instructors out there that we try and reinvent the wheel and we try and make things new and exciting for us. It's new and exciting for the students. It doesn't need to be new and exciting for us. In fact, it should be old hat for us, as a matter of fact. And
Right.
so taking it that point and doing it the way we've learned. One of the hacks that I really like that Gary showed me is you can get the waterproof paper and print your notes right on it. You can put that right in your BC pocket, or you can clip it to you. I saw somebody at my evaluation that came out with darn near the instructor manual and notes all printed out. And he would, anytime we had anything, whether we're in the water or in the classroom, he's
now one thing. Now, one thing I will do this. All right. Challenge your candidates in the ITC to memorize the format of the in-water presentation. Mm-hmm. Okay. The little moniker that I created was objective, value, goals. Objective, right, is just the name of the skill. The value is why they need to do it. And goals is the key points, the organization of the skill, the location the skill is going to be conducted in, and the signals that you're going to use, right? So objective, value, goals. And the reason why I tell people to memorize it is because you're not being evaluated on how well you can read your notes. You're being evaluated on how well you can connect to your students and teach them a skill that you already know how to do. And here's the other benefit. Everybody in your instructor evaluation already knows how to do the skill as well. So challenge yourself to memorize it and not use notes at all when it comes to the in-water presentations. Because at the end of the day, we can all figure out and remember the key points, right, of a skill. So just tell them what the skill is, tell them why they need to know it, and then go right into the key points of the skill. The organization of this skill is just simply going to be, I want you to watch me first. Don't do anything. I'll come to you one at a time to have you do the skill for me. We're going to do it right here, right? The location is right here in the shallow end. It's going to be right here in the deep end. It's going to be right here at the surface. Where's this skill going to be conducted? Okay, and then go through the hand signals. Think about where you are in teaching. Is this the first skill that they're doing, or is this the last skill that they're doing? Right? How many times have you been in the pool with them? So, is okay important? Is something wrong important? Is, stop important, or redo, whatever signal you use for redo? Is it this way? Is it this way? Whatever that is, explain it to your students so that they know what you're asking them or communicating to them underwater. Um, it's great to have cheat notes. It's great to have, I'm not putting Gary down or that suggestion to print everything off on the waterproof paper or to even write it out so that you can have it there to refer to it. But just ask yourself, who do you want to take class from? The person who's sitting here reading a note like this and talking like Ferris Bueller's teacher, Bueller, 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 or the person who can make eye contact with you and communicate what they're going to ask you to do on this next skill. Always try to push yourself to be better. And I understand that there's nerves and things like that. So I, as a certifier, have never been afraid to have people start over. It might sound like a rule violation, but my whole thing is this. I'm not going to fail you on a brain fart, okay? Now, if it's a safety issue, that's one thing. But I'm not going to fail you if you screw up on the introduction format, right? There's a way to introduce a skill. You can nail it, you can fail it, you can barely pass it. But at the end of the day, do your best to challenge yourself to memorize that format so that you can just rattle it off to people when you're trying to teach them scuba. And if you stay in that style, it's going to be easier when you want to go up to the next level, right? When you want to go from open water instructor to being an assistant instructor trainer. If you've always kept with the SSI system that you're going to use in that evaluation, well, now when you're the one asking to make the assistant instructors, you're going to know it like the back of your hand. And that's what I challenge folks to do, is to stay within that system and find a way to make it your own. Find a way to tell the stories, crack the jokes, give people a little stress relief. And then you're going to do amazing scuba. And all your students are going to continue to want to come back and learn from you because of the way you teach scuba.
That's awesome. I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
Now, we've made it through the instructor trainer and evaluation. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see new dive instructors make?
I think one of the biggest things is going out and thinking that they can just teach anything and everything to everybody. Don't be afraid to co-teach with some more learned instructors for a little bit. Don't be afraid to walk through with whoever does training at your shop, right? I want to walk through this open water class a couple more times just to make sure I understand it. Don't be afraid to go out and get your own folks to bring in to take class, right? Shops love that when you can be self-sufficient and bring your own customers in to teach scuba with. The only other thing I would tell you, and this just comes from my own personal pet peeve, if you want to give a discount on scuba lessons, you should give it from your instructor fee, not from the shop fee. Or if you do ask the shop for a discount to teach somebody scuba, make sure you let them know. And I'm also going to take some of that discount out of what you're going to pay me to teach the course. I think by just showing a little bit of professionalism in that regard, being willing to learn, but also being willing to bring in your own folks. I think all of those things make for a well-rounded first experience, especially as a new instructor. And also don't forget that the laws of physics still apply to you. Just because you have an open water instructor card doesn't mean that you know everything there is to know about scuba. It means you now have a license to learn scuba in a totally different manner than what you had known it as before. You're now responsible for folks. And I know the responsibility scares some people off. They'll say, well, I don't want to be an instructor because I don't want all that responsibility. But, as a dive master, as an assistant instructor, you still have responsibilities and you're still showing people how to dive safely. You don't have to be a professional. You could be on a boat and just helping somebody that hasn't dove in a little while, or somebody that hasn't dove in the ocean before, right? I used to go on vacation and be like, oh, great, now I'm getting stuck with the rookie divers. But you know what? It's a great way for me to practice when I was a young instructor, giving people tips and advice in different ways that were outside of a class. So I had a little bit more freedom to be a little bit more jovial about my advice, or a little bit more empathetic, right? I didn't feel like I had to have this instructor role on. I was just a buddy, a guy that's been diving a few times. So I can say, are you sure you need that much weight for what we're going to do? Or are you sure you wouldn't like a little bit more weight? You know, I'm wearing this much and you're only wearing this much. And we're about the same weight. Maybe, have you dove in this environment enough to know that that's all the weight you're going to need? So all those little things are tips and tricks that you can pick up along the way. But I think those are the best ones to think about when you're first getting started.
Absolutely. So how do you ensure that SSI instructors are teaching a safe and responsible message?
I think just by using the evaluation format, first and foremost, and secondly, using the evaluation criteria for the in-water training. You know, comfort through repetition is our signature style of teaching in water, right? And it's also the best way that I can show people how to be safe divers all along, right? But to also be thinking divers. My favorite slide of all the slides in the open water pegs, the presentation enhancement guides, is the one where it shows the diver having a problem and then stopping and then thinking and then figuring out what the solution is. Because I think that applies to everything that we do in scuba. I want your muscle memory to be so good in the water that when this pops out of your mouth, you know how to put the alternate in. Or when your buddy's saying, I'm out of air, you're already going at him with the alternate or with your primary, whichever the situation dictates, right? But you've also been trained well enough to know that you can pass the primary or you can pass the alternate. I'm worried that from COVID happening, we're going to have a generation of divers that when somebody says, I'm out of air, let's share air, they're going to take the reg out of their mouth, they're going to fist bump it, and then put it right back in their mouth. No, I need that, please.
I get it completely. I agree. I love, we've had that same discussion here as well, and I get it.
Yeah, but that's it. Is just stopping to think and know that you're using the system, and by evaluating that, I know you're going to have everything sort of ingrained in you from the ITC, right? You've done comfort through repetition enough as an instructor candidate that if you show me that in the instructor evaluation, it's going to be part of my words of wisdom when I say, hey, congratulations, you've passed. Now you're just getting to learn at a whole new level. So go out there and learn and learn from everybody. Even if you learn what you don't want to do, sometimes that's more important than knowing exactly what you want to do, because you've eliminated it as an option. You don't have to think about it anymore, and you can still go focus on other things or other areas that you want to develop.
Awesome. No, I agree completely, and I love your insight on that as well. So the biggest thing I realized in our first conversations when we were putting together the ice diving manual and everything is that region to region, country to country, there's a lot of different policies, ways things happen, shoulds become musts in certain countries as well. So how does SSI ensure consistency in its training programs across different regions and different countries?
That's a great question, Benjamin. So I think one of the benefit of being a global organization as SSI is, in translating our materials into so many different languages, we've got subject matter experts in each one of those languages, which means that we're represented in all those different areas. A lot of times people will notice that I won't say something is right or wrong. I've been around enough dive shops now, been around hundreds of dive shops, been around thousands of scuba professionals. And I always hear sometimes this complaint, oh, well, you learned to dive in the Caribbean, so, it's the wild, wild west down there, or Cozumel's the wild, wild west, but the reality of it is that there's different ways of doing things and it's still accomplishing the same objective. For instance, if you never dove on the West Coast and done a shore entry, you don't know about walking in backwards as you get through the waves breaking to where you can then put your fins on, when you're about chest high water, so that then you can start swimming out. Sometimes in Florida, we don't have to do that because we can just walk in backwards with our fins on, because the waves, where the waves are breaking, they're not that big. So it's not that West Coast divers do it right and East Coast divers do it wrong. They just do it differently. And I think those are the conversations that we need to have. And I think that's what SSI does a great job of doing, is saying, listen, you are the professional teaching your student. You need to be able to adapt the way you teach to the person that's across from you, given the environment that you're training them in. So, in Hawaii, they don't have a lot of pools. So they have to do all of their pool sessions as confined water sessions. And wouldn't we all like to have a lagoon that has 100 yards of visibility? I absolutely would. But at the end of the day, I can't fault Hawaii for not having pools available to teach in before they take people out to open water. So that's why SSI gives you the flexibility of saying, no, there's a pool environment, there's a confined water environment, there's an open water environment, and these are the definitions of all three. Now you have to be the professional and figure out how you can make the best possible diver given the environment that you have to train in. And for those in the Midwest and North, ice diving makes perfect sense, because otherwise you're only going to have 2 or 3 months to dive in locally. And who wants to just dive for 2 or 3 months? I don't have the budget. Well, I go to the Caribbean every 2 to 3 weeks, but it's work. So I don't have the personal budget to go to the Caribbean every 2 to 3 weeks when I want to dive personally. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to learn to dive in different environments. So take full advantage of that and explore all the environments that are interesting to you. We've all heard that it's 80 and 80. So unless the air temperature is 80 degrees and the water temperature is 80 degrees, if it's not above that, I don't dive. I know that fresh water doesn't get colder than 34 degrees. Otherwise, it'd be ice. So, how bad can it be if you're in a dry suit with a really good set of thermals underneath? At the end of the day, learn to dive in multiple environments. You'll have a lot more fun. And that's what SSI does, is they use those experts to make sure that the local guidelines are followed, that the local laws and regulations aren't exceeded. And then we give that information to our professionals, and we give them the freedom to be flexible with the flexibility rule, to adapt to the person that's across from them in the environment that they find themselves teaching in.
That's awesome. Absolutely, and I agree. And yes, the water actually can get colder than 34. By the way, just heads up. Fresh water.
Fresh water. Yeah.
Fresh water's moving. It gets colder.
That's true. Yep.
I have a record on one of my computers of a 29-degree dive. And
I was just going to ask if it was 29. That's awesome.
I've seen 29 on my computer, and people are like, "Wait a minute, it froze. It should have frozen." I'm like, "Nope, it's moving."
It's moving. Yeah. Well, when we were in Lake Okoboji, it was 39 degrees at the surface, just under the ice, and then as we went down, it got to 34. And then there was a couple of places that were over by the bridges where the water was moving through, and that's exactly what the temperature was over there. It was 29 over there in that area. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Thermals help, but you definitely feel it.
Yeah, it'll wake you up in the morning.
Following on that one, that's for sure. So, Mark, what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen in the scuba diving industry over the course of your career?
Well, over the course of the career, I've seen things change dramatically, right? We used to be a paramilitary training style environment, where we used to breathe off of this directly from the tank under the pool. We used to have to do buddy breathing. And then they kind of figured out that, maybe the panicky diver won't give the air back. So maybe we should learn another way to do it. When I first started diving back in 91, the alternate regulator was not standard equipment yet. It was recommended, but it hadn't become as standard as it is today to have that second regulator. I think we live in a time now where everybody's making good equipment. Everybody's teaching good scuba. And those that don't get weeded out pretty quickly. through market share. So at the end of the day, it's been rewarding to see all the neat changes at DEMA. They've got the Lafitte scooters that are just these itty bitty little scooters that drug me all over the reef. The battery lasted about 45 minutes. I was so impressed. Not necessarily a pitch for them because I haven't bought mine yet, but I've used them a few times. I saw a foldable fin, a collapsible fin that fans out like a fan at DEMA this last year. DEMA is going to be in New Orleans, so I always look forward to going to DEMA and seeing what the latest and greatest is in the industry. And I think the other thing that's been kind of interesting is the lawsuits that have changed the way we dive as well. Standards only change when there's a legal requirement that forces us to change it, or we realize that there's a different practice in play right now. There's been two sort of controversial things that have happened here this year with SSI. One of the things is that the deep dive requirements, the way we teach deep diving, has changed, and now it's laid out in standards that you're going to reverse profile, meaning that we're going to take a student to 60 to 80 feet on their first dive, 80 to 100 feet on their second dive, and then 100 to 130 feet on their third dive. That caused quite a bit of discussion at our dealer summits this year because most of the boat operators and some of the dive shops were protesting that we would make this change. And let me just say that the reason why we changed this was because of a lawsuit, but also for the fact that Dan has written 2 articles on reverse profiles and found that as long as the depth you're going to is within 20 feet of your previous depth, you have no increased risk of decompression sickness. So if you think about it, if you dove 70 feet, 90 feet, and 110 feet as your dive order for your first 3 dives to earn your deep diver certification, you're not going to have an increased risk of decompression sickness, especially if you do it over 2 days. Now, you can do 3 training dives in 1 day, and we all know how to work the table to find the minimum surface interval required to do the next dive for the amount of time that we want to do. But what I would challenge you to think about is this. The student doesn't have experience going deep yet. And some people get nitrogen narcosis at 100 feet. I know people that have gotten it at 87 feet. I know people that haven't gotten it at 150 feet. So what we're doing is we are giving the student experience at a deeper depth. And if you think about it, when I earned my freediving certification, I went down to 130 feet, but I didn't do it on the first day. I did it on day 8 of my freediving clinic. We start at 30 feet and see how we do there. Then we go to 40 feet, 60 feet, 80 feet, 100 feet, right? We get our experience with deep over time, or with depth over time. So what that means is that when we're taking a new student out to introduce them to deep diving, we should do the same thing to give our body time, to give their body, specifically their body, time to adjust to the depth that we're going to. And by using reverse profiling, we're giving them adequate experience before they do their next dive to a deeper level under supervision. And that's what we got out of the Dan information, and also what we got from the lawsuit, where they said, listen, this student's last dive, their deepest dive in the history of their 4 open water checkout dives was 40 feet. And you're telling me that for dive number 5, it was okay to take them to 130 feet? That's the recreational limits. They have no experience diving between 40 and 130. Unfortunately, it was already a violation to take that particular person below 100 feet anyway. So what we're talking about now is giving people experience and gradually increasing their introduction to that experience under supervision. And that makes a lot more sense, especially given that the Dan data found no correlation to decompression sickness happening more rare, or more having more of an occurrence of decompression sickness just because you dove deeper on the next consecutive dive. So,
No, that makes perfect sense. And absolutely, a lot of things change. That's for sure.
yeah.
So, Mark, as we kind of wind this down, what advice would you give divers who want to advance their careers in diving?
I would say get really good at what you're doing and then start adding specialties. Look for specialties maybe that nobody else teaches at your shop or in your area, and then try adding those. But again, if you have a passion for photo or video, you should be teaching the photo and video specialty. There's nothing wrong with charging people for your expertise in those areas, especially if you're really good at it. So, don't be afraid to recommend perfect buoyancy to your students. I know that we all have our own little thoughts on specialties and whether or not students need them. And at the end of the day, I respect everybody's opinions on those things. Once somebody made an argument that specialties cause a false sense of security just because you have a card. But I think you're undervaluing the expertise that you get. Just because you get deep certified doesn't mean you should always go deep. It means you have a license to learn about the deep now that you've been introduced to it in a safe and supervised manner. So as a new instructor, learn from the wisdom of the older instructors, learn from your students, learn from the students who took class from a bad instructor so you know what not to do. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask questions all the time. If you want to run a trip, then learn how to run trips, but ask questions. Don't just come up with your own trip and then say, hey, I've arrived, I'm running a trip. There might be something you didn't think about. So never be afraid to ask questions. I'm always a resource. I know, Benjamin, you're always a great resource as well. And I would just encourage people to ask questions for people that they know and trust and know that they would be willing to invest in you. I had a lot of people invest in me as a young instructor, even before I became an instructor. I had a lot of people invest in me with knowledge and resources after I became the National Training Manager. And I still have peers that will invest in me as the district sales manager to the Caribbean because, it does take a village not only to learn how to ice dive or to ice dive, but diving in general takes a village. And I'm grateful that we're a community that loves to help and pitch in and give people feedback. And it's just humbling to be a part of such an awesome community of folks that have that givingness and that willingness to step in and help out. So take advantage of it as a new young person. And who knows, you might even be National Training Manager one day and we'll be listening to you.
Absolutely. So
Absolutely.
finally, last question for you for the day. What are some of your proudest achievements as the National Training Director for SSI?
Just getting out and meeting everybody. You mentioned women in diving. I love connecting young female instructors with female shop owners, just as a resource to have. I respect that there are some differences between men and women, the way we communicate, the way we've learned, the way we're treated in this industry. And so I encourage folks to have mentors, encourage folks to make those types of connections based off of, female to female, male to male bonding. All those things play a role in who we become and who we are professionally. My mother told me, who your friends are says a lot about you. Mm-hmm. So guess what? That's been proven time and time again. I've listened to people that talked about how they became a millionaire was they listened to other millionaires and how they spent and dealt with their money. I've learned millionaires watch billionaires and how they deal with their money to become a billionaire. So if you make friends with and are mentored by the people that are doing what you want to do, I guarantee you'll get there in better time and in better shape than they did because they're going to help you avoid all the brick walls that they ran into. Unfortunately, I was the kid that had to run into the brick wall 5 times, the first 4 times because it was fun, the 5th time just to make sure I wasn't lying to myself. So learn from other people's failures and other people's pain, and you'll get really far in this industry. And anytime I can be of assistance, more than happy to have people reach out to me and ask me for advice or a reference or a connection. So just let me know.
Awesome. Mark, thank you. You've been a wealth of wisdom and a wealth of knowledge today, and I appreciate you
Thank you,
so
Benjamin.
much.